lag time we have, because when I'm in the studio, I can watch what you're seeing, but there's about a 30-second lag, maybe. Maybe it's not actually live yet. Are- We are live. Uh, are we live? Are we live? Hello. Are we live? Okay, good. It's a There's a bit of a lag, so I'm just checking. All right. Okay. Yeah, there's not really a good way for me to track all this or manage it from where I sit. But thank you for joining us today. I am coming to you from Panama again, like I said, and there. See, now I'm starting to see people's responses. We're going to talk today about what might be ahead in the next 6 months or so between Israel and Iran. As you all know, Iran is the actual enemy, and Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, it sounds like a really bad boy band or something. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis, and the Blowfish are just proxies in this. They're not the only proxies. There's more. Iran has been working hard to get more proxies in Judea and Samaria and the Hebron, otherwise known as the West Bank. They have been working to rebuild Hezbollah by flying agents from Iran through a circuitous route, because they can't go directly there anymore, but into Lebanon, and then having them carry big bags of cash with them to give to Hezbollah, try to rebuild Hezbollah. So this war is not over by any stretch. Like I said, Sudan they're working on. Iran is trying to develop Sudan into becoming an ally or a proxy. They're not going to stop this until they are stopped. And that's the point of today's live. Israel has got to eventually, and the United States as well, go to the source and has got to address this directly with Iran. Now, from what I can tell, Iran's not in great shape. Most people in Iran do not seem to be real excited about the prospect of being at war with Israel or the United States. They don't like their own government. Their own government is very unpopular. Thank you, MM. I'm going to put this over here. And so there are a lot, even just in the last week, we've seen protests and riots and vandalisms and things like that happening inside Iran against the government. It's kind of a Iranian version of Antifa, maybe. I don't know, with burqas or without burqas, because they don't like to wear their burqas. Can't blame them there. So Israel has a moment here that they've got to take advantage of. There's a moment in time they have degraded Iran's capabilities in many ways over the course of this war. In the actually 2 strikes that they have made on Iran since the war started. Iran started it. I mean, not only did they assist with October 7th, supporting Hamas, but they actually attacked Israel in April of last year. That's the first time they had ever directly attacked Israel. More than 300 drones and other tubular complaints flying towards Israel, and nobody killed. One Israeli Bedouin was hurt, but nobody killed in that. The Israelis, for their part, probably should have replied with the proverbial shock and awe. Instead, they shot one essentially inert missile, penetrated through all of Iranian air defenses and struck an air defense unit, radar unit, very close to one of their nuclear sites, as a message, a warning to them, saying, if you push us, we can take out everything. And did Iran learn its lesson? No, it did not learn its lesson. Iran kept pushing, attacking again in October when I was there with we had a group, and we had just arrived in Amman, Jordan, right across the Dead Sea from Israel. And all of a sudden, right after dinner, boy, my phone started blowing up. Everything started going crazy. And I ran outside and looked up, and it was like the 4th of July. There were rockets coming from Israel, coming up to meet the missiles that were coming from Iran. And they intersected pretty much right over our hotel, it looked like. There was just all these, boom, boom, boom taking place. And of course, my intrepid 44-man and woman tour group, there wasn't a basement or a bunker to hide in, so they just ran outside and took pictures. And we went live. Many of you might have been on that live, might recall that. That was something else. It was something to see for sure. And Israel's response after that attack was full on. They went in and they took out all of Iran's, air defense units around the country. Basically, just crippled their air defense. So they're blind and toothless at this point from an air defense standpoint. Now, they are trying very hard to rebuild their air defense capabilities as quickly as possible. And they just recently announced a new air defense unit. I don't know, I'll show you a picture of it here. We'll go over here and we'll look. Let's see if there it is. And it's called where'd I go? I'm looking through my notes here. Zebulon? There it is. Zubin. Zoubin. It's called the Zubin. And it's already kind of obsolete. I mean, they should call it the Zoo Has Been. We could come up with a more creative name than that. But they call it the Air Defense Missile System, Zubin. They say it's the most advanced that they've ever had, which isn't saying a whole lot. It only has a 30-kilometer range, so it only has the ability to pick up aircraft coming in or whatever missiles, 30-kilometer range. Now, it's not directional, so it's omnidirectional. It can see 360 degrees. It can track up to 100 targets simultaneously, but it can only engage 8 of those. And in reality, it's probably no match whatsoever for a F-22 or even an F-35, because it operates with radar. And here's the thing, an F-22 is made for picking that stuff up and taking it out. F-35 can sniff out a radar. As soon as they engage the radar, the F-35 locks onto that radar signature and fires a missile at it. And within seconds, that thing is going to be vaporized. So they're putting a lot of money into developing these Zubin radar systems, but it is fairly short range, only 30 kilometers. Iron Dome system, for example, can go up to 70 kilometers. Patriot missile systems can go in excess of 100 kilometers, 50 miles. So this is more for taking out like drones. If Israel were to fire drones at Iran or somebody else, Azerbaijan, whatever, the Zubin system could help them knock some of those down. But of course, so the news today is that coming out of an American intelligence agency, they believe that this was apparently leaked. U.S. intelligence officials warn Israel may take advantage of Iran's weakness and an attack on Fordow and Natanz in the first half of 2025. This is from Israel Hayom. Israel is expected to strike Iran's nuclear facilities, according to senior officials in the U.S. intelligence community. Of course, they're not named. The sources claimed Israel is likely to target Iran's nuclear program sites. Now, Fordow and Natanz, I'm sure these are hard to keep up with, but these are nuclear enrichment sites. So these sites they have centrifuges, and they help to enrich uranium to the point where it can be weaponized. Now, they have a whole bunch of these. And these two sites have a history of being attacked by Israel. So one of the things I'm going to talk about today is, sort of the different ways that Israel could and might attack. Obviously, the Trump administration is going to be a little more lenient with Israel in allowing them to attack if they see fit, and not clamp the handcuffs on Israel like the Biden administration did. But let's go look at these sites. Now, we're going to go to the map. Produce the map. Oh, that's not the map. I'm on the wrong one. We're going to go to that in a second. Hang on. There's the map. Okay. So this is Natanz. And if we zoom out here, slow computer. Okay. It's probably easier if we look at a regular map. There we go. So this is the Natanz facility. You can see Israel is way over here, right? The other side of Jordan, way over there. Natanz is centrally located in Iran. Iran's a pretty big country. And the area looks like this. It's moonscape, which this is much of Iran. So you want to see what the moonscape looks like. It looks like Mars or something out here. So not much out there worth looking at, except you see these big mountains over here? They've buried the Natanz facility deep, deep, deep underground, underneath those mountains. And there's an interesting history to Natanz, because Natanz was the site of the 2010 Stuxnet virus. If you're not familiar with Stuxnet, it was the world's first actual cyber weapon. Again, only, what was that, 15 years ago. It was a cyber attack that was jointly developed by the United States and Israel. And what it did is it went after the industrial control units, the ICUs, in the centrifuges underground at Natanz. Now, here they had a difficulty with this. The difficulty was that Natanz, the facility there, is what they call an air-gapped facility. And what that means is there is no internet connection between the facility where the centrifuges are and the outside world. There's an air gap. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no DSL, there's no nothing. So the first thing the cyber warriors had to figure out how to do was get the Stuxnet virus into the facility. How do you do that if there is no way in electronically? And what they did was ingenious in a way and kind of like face palming in a way. They just put the Stuxnet virus on a bunch of thumb drives. You know, you've used these thumb drives before. I've got one right here. Put it on a thumb drive and just left them laying around in places where the people who worked at Natanz might frequent. So maybe an internet cafe or a bar or a restaurant, or even just on the sidewalk outside where they know this guy's going to walk by. And they write something on there like movies or porn or, whatever. And they just wait. And it took years, took a long time, but eventually some idiot picked up this unknown thumb drive and went, oh, wonder what's on that, and carried it into this very highly secure facility and plugged it into one of their computers to see what was on it. And the Stuxnet took over. And it was very very smart weapon. What it did is it just propagated through all the computers inside the ICUs, the industrial control units, in these centrifuges. Didn't do anything, just sort of wormed its way through there. And then, these centrifuges are very precise and they have to spin at a very certain RPM and they have to spin for a certain amount of time. And all this stuff is very highly controlled. Well, what happened was it just waited until like the middle of the night when nobody's really looking. And then it would increase the speed of some of the centrifuges, not all of them, by 30%. And they'd spin a little faster than they were supposed to. And that would cause them to break. Now, they have tens of thousands of these centrifuges, a lot. And centrifuges break all the time. They're very complex, very precise instruments, like I said. So the more complex, the more easy it is for them to break. Well, they just caused a few more than normal to break, and then a few more, and then a few more, but not all at once and in different places, different times, and just sort of over time, just sort of made it impossible for them to achieve their goal of enriching the uranium to a weaponizable strength. So there are plenty of uses for nuclear fissile material, like chemotherapy, very low radiation stuff, other medical uses and industrial uses and stuff like that. But there's really no civilian use for any kind of uranium that's enriched above 60%. And to get weapons grade uranium, it needs to be enriched to 90%. And that's what these centrifuges could be doing. But with this virus, Stuxnet virus, worming its way in there, it wrecked all of that and really set back. Those things are very expensive. And they couldn't figure out at first what was causing it. I mean, it took a long time. And they set back the nuclear program in Iran about 10 years, they say. And that's excellent. I mean, what an awesome, a bunch of really smart, geeky looking kids, those kids that couldn't get a girlfriend in high school, that, the pimply face, pipe cleaner neck nerds. Well, they had their day, didn't they? And they figured out how to go in and basically demolish Iran's enrichment capability without a shot being fired, without a troop on the ground, maybe some CIA guys to spread the thumb drives around. And it worked great. As a matter of fact, it worked too great. That's part of the problem. Because that virus got out. Somehow somebody put it back on a thumb drive, carried it out of the facility, plugged it into something else, probably to try to figure out what the problem was. And then it took off and started taking over computers all over the world, including in the United States. And other hackers got their hands on the Stuxnet virus, took it apart, reverse engineered it, and figured out how to how to recreate something like it, a similar virus. And the whole world has been suffering ever since. I mean, again, that was the world's first cyber weapon, and that opened a Pandora's box that is getting worse and worse every year. And you don't hear much about it. It's so commonplace now that you might just hear somebody mention, oh, our computers got hacked at work. Or my sister told me the other day that the hospital she works at in Maryland had a cyber attack and everything got locked up with ransomware. And so they were back to paper, pen and paper. In a world that runs on computers, that's a really bad thing. And that Stuxnet virus sort of lit the fire that has then spread throughout the world. And last year, I want you to take a guess at how much money was lost to cybercrime. And we'll bring that back full circle to what's going on in Iran in a second. But how much money do you think was lost to cybercrime? No fair Googling it. I looked it up doing my research for this thing, and it about knocked me over. How much do you think? I'll wait 30 seconds or so because it takes a few minutes before your answers start coming in. While you're at it, folks, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Just hit the subscribe button and go to chuckholton.com. Immediately after this live, I'm going to do another live because I'm getting a lot of messages and questions from viewers about Trump's phone call with Vladimir Putin and what's going to happen there, and with Iran, and then several other things that we have to talk about as well. So we had 900 billion, 150 billion, 500 billion. You guys are not even close. The actual number just last year, the cost of cyber crime last year, 2024, ran to $9.5 trillion worldwide. $9.5 trillion? Okay, so I was like, how do you even wrap your head around that much money? So I Googled it and was like, what kind of things could we accomplish? Could somebody accomplish if they had $9.5 trillion? $9.5 trillion is 40 times Elon Musk's wealth, something like that. So I looked it up, and the list that it came up with was pretty amazing. So $9.5 trillion, we could eradicate global hunger. According to the United Nations estimates, it would cost about $330 billion a year to eradicate, to feed every person on the planet, make sure nobody went hungry. And so we could eradicate all global hunger for 30 years with that much money. We could provide clean water to every human being on the planet for 50 years or more. We could completely eliminate homelessness worldwide multiple times over. We could fund malaria eradication efforts for the next 1,500 years. The total cost of completely eliminating U.S. student loan debt, we could give every American student free college for decades. I mean, 30, 40 years, something like that. Which actually, that in and of itself is a surprising number. That's just a total rabbit trail. But there's $1.7 trillion of student debt in the loan debt in the United States. I don't think that means that we should just let those, people not pay their bills. I had to pay my student loans. My wife, we paid our student loans, but there's something seriously wrong with American higher education if it costs that much for Americans to get college. And it could fund universal health care for about 13 minutes. No, I'm kidding. 3 years. And that's, I don't believe that number, because if you institute universal health care, what you see, if you're in Canada or one of those socialist countries over in Europe, is that people just tend to get a lot more health care done. I mean, they decide all kinds of, and then people who need it can't get it. And then the government has a say in everything you do with your life, because it's going to cost them money if you don't wear a helmet or a seatbelt or whatever. We could fund 95 missions to Mars with $9.5 trillion. You get the point. Hacking, cyber attacks are absolutely massive, and they're only going to get worse. I've been reading a lot about this. There's a book I'm reading right now called "This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends" by a well-known journalist, writer, who has covered the cybersecurity beat for many years. And she says that I always say information war is the real battle space. She says cyber war is the real battle space. Those two overlap quite a bit. Espionage in the cyber realm, ransomware attacks, infrastructure attacks. Like I said, that Stuxnet virus was the first one ever to attack industrial control units, but there are lots and lots of very important machinery around the world. Pretty much every machine in the world these days has an ICU in it of some sort. It's one reason I would not want an electric car, for sure. I like an old diesel, my Toyota Land Cruiser. That's the best car to have. What do you think is the best car to have? I'm curious because, I've friends and family who would love a Tesla. And I drove a Tesla one time and it was fun. It was cool, but I'm not going to turn my life over to a vehicle that can be controlled by the government. Ty says, I prefer a horse and wagon. The emissions are a little worse, for sure, but. Okay, so Mama Marissa is getting me back on track. Thank you. She says, is Israel planning to bomb the sites, or is that just talk? Well, no, they're planning to bomb the sites. See, the reason that they're going to do it in the next 6 months, if they do it, is because right now they have a window that gives them a very passable chance of actually doing some damage at these sites. Now, as I have said before, they are buried deep, deep, deep underground, both Fordow and Natanz. So you could collapse the entrances to these things. Better yet, cut off the power somehow. And there's lots of ways you could do that without bombs. So this is what got me into the whole Stuxnet thing, is that the news here says from U.S. intelligence officials that Israel is planning to strike Iran within the next 6 months. But again, reading between the lines, what it doesn't say is how. It doesn't say they're going to bomb them. It just says they're going to strike them. And a strike can take so many forms. So they could send in saboteurs. They've done that before. Both Fordow and Natanz have been struck by saboteurs in the past. Let me go back to my notes here. The Natanz was Fordow, I keep calling it Fordow fuel enrichment plant. It's near Combe. Here, I've got that on my map. Let's see if I can pull that up for you. I got too many windows open. Combe, there it is. Fordow. Oh, you can't see the map yet. There we go. Okay, there's the map. Here's Fordow. It's a little village up in the mountains near Combe. It's in Combe province. You notice how they put these very far from their western border. That's for a reason. Fairly close to Tehran. Not that Israel couldn't strike that. They could definitely get there. There's not a whole lot of pictures to see what this looks like. People like that. But so it looks like this. It's pretty dry, mountainous, whatever. They could send, I'm sorry, what I was saying was that Fordow has been, it was a secret site that was first exposed in 2009 by Western intelligence. Up until that point, Iran said it didn't exist. In 2021, Iran began enriching uranium to 20% and then later 60%, violating the nuclear deal that was put in place under the Obama administration. In 2022, US and European officials warned Iran had installed advanced IR-6 centrifuges at the site. And now, because of that, they could very likely get over that, get to what they call breakout in a week or two. Now, breakout is how long would it take them to enrich their uranium from the upper limit of civilian use, 60%, to weaponized use, 90%. And if they decide to say go, these two sites between Fordow and Natanz, these two here, they say could possibly create enough weapons grade uranium for a nuclear weapon within 1 week. This is why this is such a problem. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have a bomb within a week. Okay? What that means is that they would be well on their way to a bomb within a week. The first step of getting to a bomb is they've got to enrich the uranium to 90%. Okay? And then once they get to 90% weapons grade, again, that could take 1 or 2 weeks, then they could turn the uranium into a nuclear warhead by first, they'd have to design and test an implosion device, miniaturize the bomb so that it could be delivered to a target, and normally they would conduct what they call cold tests, which is testing everything in the system without actually detonating anything nuclear. Experts estimate that could take several months to a year. However, Iran might just not test. That is a possibility. They could skip the whole testing part completely. That's what Israel did when Israel made its first nuclear device. They didn't bother testing at all so that they could get to having a bomb without anybody knowing. Because if they test, we're going to know. And that would at least give Israel some heads up, and you can bet things would go kinetic very quickly. So if they were to spin up the centrifuges, crank out enough fissile material to make a bomb, put the bomb together, and then just not test it, just use it, it'd be a bad day for the whole world. It'd be a bad day for Iran too, make no mistake. You understand, I keep saying this, and I will keep saying it. Nuclear weapons only function as a deterrent. They don't function as an offensive weapon anymore because everybody has one, almost. Question, how deep can a hydrogen bomb go? Well, a hydrogen bomb is not a penetrating weapon. It's a nuclear device, and so they're very powerful, but unless they are buried before they are detonated, it's not going to go very deep. You know, when they have tested things like that in the past, especially in the United States, normally they take it out to, Nellis Air Force Base out there near Area 51, and they bury that thing very, 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 very deep, and then they set it off. And I remember when I was a kid being in the area when hearing them announce that they were testing nuclear weapons. And, it just basically would make a little earthquake out there because they would test it underground. Question, how do you enrich uranium? You spin it in a centrifuge. That's what we're talking about here with these two sites. These two sites are fuel enrichment sites. And so they have tens of thousands of centrifuges all working underground, spinning that uranium to enrich it, to get it more and more pure, more and more powerful. Now, I don't know all of the science, obviously, that goes into that, or I would be working as a nuclear scientist and making gobs of money. But suffice it to say, it is a very precise and delicate and complicated operation. And it is something that Iran seeks to do. So if Israel is going to attack in the coming few months, we all immediately think, oh, they're going to bomb. But that's not exactly what it says. The messages coming out of U.S. intel agencies just say that Israel is going to attack Iran. They might bomb them, but they might think of something much more clever. If we've learned anything about the Israelis since the beginning of the war, it's that Israel puts a high value on cleverness. And so it may take the form of another virus somehow. There are, oh my goodness, I've been going down this rabbit hole recently reading about quantum computing. And when you read about what these things are capable of doing, real quantum computers, there is no password on Earth that a quantum computer could not crack in seconds, most likely. No password you could come up with would be safe from a quantum computer. So it stands to reason that we probably don't want everybody having these quantum computers. And we want to tightly regulate who can have them, who does have them, and what can be done with them. Because even just with the artificial intelligence that we have, so there's varying levels here, right? You take a Cray supercomputer, that's like a greeting card compared to the artificial intelligence that is out there now and what the AI is able to do if given enough data with regular computer chips, not quantum computer chips. Regular computer chips process functions one at a time, in a linear order, first number one, then number two, then number three. And if it's got a long, math problem to solve, which essentially that's all computing is. It's just solving math problems and then translating that into data that we can use. Regular computer chips process those in linear order, and the measure of how fast the chip is how many calculations it can do in a second. How many gigaflops per second it can crank out. The thing about quantum computers is that they can do all the calculations simultaneously. And the science behind this makes my head hurt. It's like something out of a science fiction movie, but it's real. And as I was saying, that artificial intelligence working on regular legacy chips is already getting to the point where if you give it enough data, it can tell you what you're going to decide to have for lunch next Thursday, even though you don't know. You haven't decided yet, but the AI can figure it out. By looking at billions of people's information, it knows us better than we know ourselves. That's how Facebook is able to target you with ads where you just mentioned something or were thinking about something. I mean, there have been times that I've been like, man, I'd really like to go hiking in Austria. I didn't say it out loud to anybody. And the next thing I know, I'm getting ads on social media for hiking spots in Austria or something. And I was just like, what? How did that happen? Because when you take the data, the browsing data, the life data for billions of people, and you feed it into an AI, that artificial intelligence can start to tell you things that would blow your mind. And we're just entering the age. We're at the very beginning stages of the age of AI. And that by itself is scary enough. But when you start looking into what quantum computing can do, well, it's orders of magnitude, like beyond comprehension stuff. And so then I go, well, we need to make sure that not everybody can have one of these things. And then you go and do some research and find out there's already nearly 500 of them in existence all over the world, quantum computers. Google or Alphabet, they had one that you can go look up this video. It's, if you want, I'll post it on chuckholton.com. It's mind-blowing. But you look it up over there. They had one called Willow, and they were giving it increasingly difficult tasks just to see how much it could do. And it started throwing these little weird artifacts off in the code that they thought were errors, except then somebody got looking at them and was like, wait, there's a pattern to these errors. And they're starting to look like runes or cuneiform or some sort of language. And then they brought in like some very good hacker who, they were bringing in, they're bringing in everybody. They were bringing in archaeologists, linguists, anthropologists. They were bringing in bioethicists. They brought everybody in. And one guy looked at that code and was looking at that, and he's a hacker. And he goes, I know what that is. That is a encryption protocol. It is starting to build an encryption protocol, and if you let it finish, it will lock you out, and it will be able to do whatever it wants, and no computer in the universe, including other quantum computers, would be able to crack that code. That code that it's coming up with right now, it's starting to put it together. It's figuring it out. And Google did the smart thing and just shut the whole program down completely. Just shut it off, because that's all we need is some Yahoo quantum computer running around taking control of stuff. I mean, holy cow, we are in for some amazing times in the next 5 years. They say that in 5 years, there will be 3,000 to 5,000 quantum computers in the world. If you think all of those are going to only belong to benevolent, good people who, like Google, I mean, literally, they flushed billions of dollars down the toilet when they shut that thing off. But it was not worth continuing and facing the possibility of that thing taking over the world. Somebody's, God is bigger. Thank you, Sherry. You're right. God is bigger, and we don't have to be afraid of these things, but we should keep our eye on him just in case. I mean, God's bigger than a grizzly bear too, but if one walks in my front door, I'm going to keep an eye on him. You can bet. Subaru is the best. Oh, you're behind. Okay, I'm like, wait, I forgot I asked you what kind of car you like. I love Subarus. We had a Subaru, and it was great. I didn't see. Okay. Anyway, all of that about quantum computers to say that, and from what I know of what Israel is doing with lots of areas right now in that country, Israel is becoming a world leader in artificial intelligence. And it isn't out of the realm of possibility that Israel comes up with an AI that can strike at Iran in a way that would leave everybody scratching their heads. We're watching these things progress so quickly. And I'm going to be talking in just a moment on chuckholton.com about this some more, especially as it pertains to Ukraine. But Ukraine just saw its first all automated, so I'm going to let you go here. And if you want to continue the discussion, go over to chuckholton.com, and I'm going to go live over there right now. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all of you. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast and like the podcast, and come join me over on chuckholton.com. It won't be supporters only, at least at the beginning. You just have to be a subscriber. So you can do that for free. Won't cost you anything. Just sign up over there at Locals, and you can jump on that live, and I'll be there in just a moment. Okay? All right. Take care. We'll see you.